What's up? What's happening? Welcome to Lacrosse Now. Travis Eldridge back with you again this week, and we have made it. College lacrosse season officially kicks off this weekend in the men's game. Exciting times. Make sure you stay to the end of the show because I'm going to give you my 3 games to watch this weekend. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the women's game. I'm going to run through my top 25 in the Inside Lacrosse Media Poll, give you a thought about each team. So that's coming up here as college lacrosse season is finally here. It feels good that we finally made it back. It's been a long off season. A lot has happened, but we'll get into it here. We'll also get into it with a couple of great guests. We've got Madison Ahern from Notre Dame on the women's side. Notre Dame coming off a roller coaster 2022 season, so we'll preview 2023 with Madison, her alongside Casey Choma. They have been 2 of the stars for Notre Dame here for the last couple of seasons, not even just entering this year. So we'll catch up with Madison. Also catch up with Hampton head coach Chaz Woodson, entering his second full season competing with Hampton. Last year was his first one after the team sat out 2021. The unique experience that he's learned about of coaching at an HBCU, obviously the unique experience for student athletes there as well. And he shares some MLL stories at the end. We get into a little bit of his playing career as well. So a great conversation with Chaz, a lengthy one. So hopefully you enjoy that. But we're going to start off today's show with some news on the professional level, and that's at the PBLA, the Professional Box Lacrosse Association, a league that, full disclosure, we have had a relationship with to stream their games throughout the beginning part of the season, announcing here on Tuesday that the remainder of the season has been postponed. You know, it's a bummer. Obviously, it is really difficult, as anybody who has followed the sport knows. It's really, really difficult to start a professional league, especially when it comes to lacrosse. There's a lot that goes into it. But it is a bummer because of what we saw here in the first month playing-wise. Like, we saw some talented guys get an opportunity to play box lacrosse. Maybe some guys who have had that experience at the NL level now getting another chance. Some guys who just haven't played a lot of box getting the opportunity to learn. I mean, I think this past weekend was the perfect example. We see Marcus Holman down in Charlotte go off for 4 goals in the one and only game he played in this league. You think of what could have been if the league could continue to develop. But for the moment, the remainder of the season postponed. They haven't completely punted on this year and haven't completely punted on bringing this league back at some point. But for the moment, no games. And if I'm a coach GM in the NLL, I look back at some of the game film. We've got full games up on YouTube from our games of the week in the beginning part of this season. There are some guys that have talent in the box game. Obviously, the rules a little different in what the PBLA was trying to do, but I'd be interested to see if maybe any of these guys find their way into an NLL roster as we head to the second half of the NLL season. But a bummer as the PBLA announces here on Tuesday that the remainder of the season at the moment is postponed. On the brighter side of things, let's talk about college lacrosse because it returns on the men's side this weekend. For the women's game, we got to wait another week. But the first Inside Lacrosse Media Poll for the preseason of the women's side announced earlier this week. I am once again a voter, and as I did last week on the men's side, I'm going to run you through my top 25. It's 25 teams on the women's side of things. I'm going to run you through my top 25, give you one thing about each one of these programs that I've ranked, whether it's a question mark, a player, a theme for the year, something that is as of note for each one of these teams. Let's start with North Carolina. Obviously, the undefeated defending champs. Unlike Maryland on the men's side, I think they have enough back in order to be the number 1 ranked team in the country in the preseason. Coming off an all-time great season, and they do, despite the fact they've got a bunch of talent back, they do lose a ton, including Jamie Ortega, who is one of the best players ever to play for North Carolina with what she did on the offensive end throughout her career. Now the question is, some of this young talent, especially a player like Caitlin Wurzberger, how does that group now make their own mark on the program? So that is what we'll be watching the beginning part of the season for North Carolina under head coach Jenny Levy. At number 2, I've got Maryland. It almost felt last year like the Terps had to reprove themselves after the Big Ten only season a couple of years ago. Obviously, it was unique because of COVID. But Maryland proved that they are back if they needed to prove. But they proved that, hey, we're here still last year. They add in Marge Donovan, a Princeton transfer. That, I believe, is huge entering this year. 3 of their top 4 scorers are back. So obviously, you've got some things to replace offensively, but Libby May, Hannah Lubacker, both back. I think that's a big thing for the Terps. I've got them contending with Carolina, at least in the beginning part of the season. Number 3, no surprise here, Boston College. The question now, no Charlotte North. She's moved on. Is this Belle Smith's time? I think she could be a Tewaaraton candidate this year. She is a tremendous athlete in the middle of the field, can do a little bit of everything. They have a ton back when you go up and down this roster. So obviously no Charlotte, but you got Belle Smith. Rachel Hall is back in goal. Jen Medjid is back on offense. Holly Schleicher is an All-American defender. Mallory Hasselbeck, former number 1 overall recruit. She's now a sophomore. They've got talent all over the place. Their recruiting classes have been great. Boston College not going anywhere despite the fact that Charlotte North is graduating. At number 4, let's go to a new CAA team, Stony Brook. I've got them higher here in my poll than they ended up in the preseason poll for the media poll from Inside Lacrosse. I think Ellie Macera is terrific. She's getting Tewaaraton recognition and hype, and it's deservedly so. Talked to Joe Spallina a couple of weeks ago here on the podcast about her when we had him on. Talked about her ability to attack in so many different ways is what makes her stand out. Maybe even amongst some of the greats who have played at Stony Brook over the last several years. Really liked her versatility and makes her different. So I think that's important. And this Stony Brook team, they've been knocking on the door. Could this be the year they finally break through? Some of it's going to have to do with seeding. But at the end of the day, you're going to make championship weekend. You're going to have to beat somebody really good. They've been really close in that quarterfinal round. As this year, the year they finally break through. We will wait and see. Another really talented team. I have at 5, Northwestern. Obviously, the much anticipated return of Izzy Skane. It's a team that brings back a bunch from a Final Four run again last year. Obviously, how you bounce back from that game against Carolina, where you had them in the semifinals. You felt like that was it. They're going to knock them off, and North Carolina with an all-time great comeback. With Northwestern and Izzy Skane having missed all of last year with the injury, I wonder if there's maybe some of the Penn State effect that we saw a couple of years ago when Granny Ment missed this one season due to injury. Different players around the offense had to fill different roles. Then Granny Ment comes back, and then everybody collectively was better because of the experience of having to do some different things that maybe they were uncomfortable with before. I wonder if maybe that effect could make Northwestern even better on offense. Skane will be working with Ellie Hansen, Aaron Coy-Kendall. That offense is going to be a handful. And, Izzy Skane, I mean, she could score 100 goals this year. That's not out of the realm of possibility. She is terrific. At number 6, I got Cuse. Syracuse bringing back Megan Tyrell. She's the preseason player of the year, according to USA Lacrosse Magazine. The question for them, can they stay healthy and can they get better playing the goal? That was the question mark at times. They obviously got crushed by North Carolina in the quarterfinal, or by Northwestern in the quarterfinals last year. Goalie play and staying healthy, keys for the Orange under Kayla Traynor. At number 7, how about Florida? Emma Lapinto was the best freshman scorer in the country last year. How does she take the step forward as a sophomore? Also, Sarah Resnick back in goal. You bring her back. She has stolen games for Florida in the past with her ability. So I'll be interested to see what having her back again does for this Florida team as they continue to get more veteran on the other end of the field after being really young a season ago. At number 8, new conference for James Madison, same expectations. They've dominated the CAA for years now. Now it's going to be really fun to watch them and Florida duel it out in the American Athletic Conference. Don't forget about Vandy there. They had a breakout beginning part of this past season as well. So should be a competitive conference. Going to be interested to see how James Madison adjusts to the new league. At number 9, Stanford. I'm higher on Stanford than some of the other voters in this poll. I've got them in my top 10. Ashley Humphrey is a name to remember. Could be an absolute superstar. She put up huge numbers last year. Terrific distributor of the ball. Keep an eye on that name moving forward. At number 10, at Notre Dame, we're going to talk to Madison or Hearn here in a bit. Her and Casey Choma has felt like have kind of been the faces of this program now for a while. Both are back. They lost a bunch of close games at the different times last year. Obviously played some of their best lacrosse at the end of last season. looking to build on that momentum. I think they win some of those close games this time around after that experience. At 11, let's go to Duke. Maddie Jenner obviously gives them an immediate advantage at the draw circle, no matter who they're playing. Also love Katie DeSimone jumping even more into that starting role as Kat Berry has moved on. Let's go to 12 for the Big Ten Rutgers. I mean, what a turnaround from 7-9 in that funky 2021 season to 16-5 a year ago. Big jump for the program. They've got some top scorers gone, so that's why I don't have them in my top 10. But looking to build on the momentum. They beat Northwestern in the Big Ten tourney last year. That was a big statement for this program. Let's go to 13, Denver. They got to replace B. Barons on offense, but they bring back some key players. Sam Thacker on the other end of the field. They may play some more low-scoring games again at times this year, but they are a team to be reckoned with. 14, Virginia. They've got Ashlyn McGovern, Aubrey Williams, both back. And you know what? I love the addition of Allie Kennedy as an assistant coach here for Julie Meyer's staff. It brings obviously terrific playing experience, and I think she's a person that a lot of players on that team are going to look up to. So I think that's a great addition. Let's go to 15, Princeton, and this starts a run of a bunch of teams here are kind of entering new eras. It's obviously Chris Saylor is gone, so it's the Jen Cook era. She obviously, not a lot changed with the staff, despite the fact that Saylor leaves, because Jen Cook has been a familiar face here for the Tigers, and they're still the preseason pick in the Ivy. Just going to be interesting to see how this program evolves now with the legendary coach having retired. Let's go to 16, USC. They returned 4 of their top 5 scorers from an NCAA tourney team a year ago, another team that will be expected to be competing at the top of the Pac-12 along with the likes of Stanford. 17, Michigan. They've got some big holes to fill with the losses of Caitlin Muir and Caitlin Mead. But I've got some faith in this Hannah Nielsen program that they will reload and try to be back in that conversation in the Big Ten. 18, speaking of teams that lost a lot, I mean, Livy Rosenzweig has been an absolute star for years. One of the best players in the country, has been a featured star at Loyola. She's gone. So now who steps up for the Hounds? That'll be my big question mark that I'll be looking for Loyola to answer in the beginning part of this season. 19, let's go to Richmond. They were shocked by St. Joe's in the semifinals, the Atlantic 10 tournament last year. Had a chance to do that game. I really liked this Richmond team, but St. Joe's came ready to play and took it to them, ended their run. And I think that gives this Richmond team, the Spiders, a little chip on their shoulder entering 2023. Got talented returners in Lindsey Frank and Arden Tierney. Number 20, Hopkins, another team who's got a new coach and a new era that's beginning. Janine Tucker is obviously a legend that she moves on as she retires. But I love the hire of former Arizona State coach Tim McCormick. He did amazing things in a short time with the Sun Devils program, a new program that he inherited. And he knows the Big Ten with his experience being an assistant coach at Northwestern. So look out for Hopkins. Maybe not this year, but I think Tim McCormick's going to continue to do special things with the program that obviously has already had some success. Let's go outside the top 20 now, our final 5. 21, I've got Yale. Big step for Yale last year. Second best team entering the Ivy League, I think, here in the preseason, behind only Princeton. And they proved last year that outside of Princeton, they can beat just about anybody in that league. And that was a big step forward, knocking off the likes of Cornell and Penn, who have traditionally been competing toward the top of the league. I look for Yale to follow it up here this season. Number 22, another new coach, as Tara Singleton takes over as head coach at Jacksonville. Minnie McCord did great things there in the quote-unquote lacrosse capital of Florida, as they like to call it, down there in Jacksonville. We'll see what Tara Singleton now does, looking to build on what has been established there. Number 23, let's go to Navy. Army, of course, shocked the mids during the regular season. Black Knights knocking off Navy for the first time in program history on the women's side. Navy got redemption in the Patriot League semis. They've got that beautiful new proposed lacrosse facility there at Navy. If you haven't seen the videos, go check it out on social media. It is beautiful. I like Cindy Timshaw and Navy to be right there in the mix in the Patriot League again this year. And I think maybe more open than it's been here in the last couple of years because of the fact that Loyola has lost a bunch. At number 24, UMass, another new coach, Jana Drummond taking over for Angela McMahon-Serpone. A10 is as competitive as ever. Remember, UMass had dominated the league for 7, 8, 9 years. Richmond had their run with a couple in a row. St. Joe's last year, shocking everybody. They won the tournament title. So between Richmond, St. Joe's, UMass, don't sleep on a talented Duquesne team that had a bunch of youth last year and competed in the A10 tournament. So that's going to be a conference that I'll be interested to watch throughout the year unfold. And then number 25, I got Colorado out of the Pac-12. Obviously, a disappointing loss last year to Oregon in the first round of the Pac-12 tourney. My question will be, where do they rank in a Pac-12 that I know what I said about Stanford being up toward the top, but really you look at the Pac-12 conference in the last couple of years, a lot of parity, and they compete really hard against each other. We've seen surprises in conference play. I'll be very interested to see how things shake out as we start to get into conference play in the Pac-12. So there you have it, my preseason top 25 teams. One thought on all 25 teams that I ranked in the preseason poll. If you want to check out how mine compare with the Inside Lacrosse preseason media poll, you can head to InsideLacrosse.com right now. But as for now, I think you should stay put with our show because we're going to be joined by Madison Ahern from Notre Dame, catching up with Madison as we get ready for the 2023 season. So as we continue to get ready for the 2023 season, we've got Notre Dame player Madison Ahern joining us now. Madison, let's just start here. Like coming out of the fall, we're talking now as you get ready to go back to Notre Dame. Where does the team feel like it's at as you enter this spring?
Yeah, so last year we didn't have kind of the outcome that we expected, losing in the first round of the tournament. We were our backs were against the wall at the end of the season, had some must-win games. And I think it kind of shocked us a little bit. We had some great games earlier in the season, lost by 1 or 2. And I mean, the season didn't end how we wanted it to, but there were definitely some bright moments there. We played really well against some of the best teams in the country. So I think that's really exciting coming back, and we're losing a lot of talent, but we're also bringing back a lot. So I think to combine like the experience returning and some new faces this year is really exciting. Specifically, goalie Lily Callahan will be suiting up in place of Bridget Dean, All-American goalie, who I've played with for 3 years, who is unbelievable. But Lily was kind of an arch rival in high school. We would always battle and attack her in goalie. So I'm really excited to see her get her chance after waiting and kind of learning from Bridget. So, yeah.
Yeah, always good when you've got somebody ready to step in some big shoes to fill there in goal. You mentioned last season, like I remember looking at it, and like I vote in the poll every week for Inside Lacrosse, the media poll, and I remember looking at what you guys are doing, and like I kept you in the top 20 despite the fact you're 1-4 because you're losing to good teams and you're in every one of those games. I have to imagine that has to be so frustrating as a team, but now like when you look back on it, what can you guys learn and take away from that hopefully you apply and like kind of have different results this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely battle tested, and like I said, we have a lot of returners that have kind of gone through that last year. So I think all we can do is just come out stronger this year and really focus in those tight game situations and make sure that we have a win in our column this year. Yeah, so I think it's probably good for us. We learned a lot, and looking forward to kind of flipping that script this year.
You know, you go to Notre Dame to play against the best, and clearly when you're in the ACC, you're playing against some of the best teams in the country week in and week out. We saw how many teams are going to the NCAA tournament every year. Now that you've experienced a couple of years, like how do you best describe what it's like competing in that league?
I mean, it's clearly the best league in the country. I think anyone that plays in the ACC or even is a fan of lacrosse knows that. I mean, when we get into ACC play, I think everyone can kind of just feel the intensity dial up a notch. And it's a little more hard hitting. Everyone's has a little bit better stick work. Everyone's a sharper shooter. The defense is a little more tenacious. I think everything is just dialed a level up. And also just knowing that it's a conference game kind of heightens the stakes a little bit for us too.
What did how you guys played in the ACC tournament last year do for obviously you didn't carry over into the NCAAs, but what did that experience do for you, maybe with some of the returners coming back this year?
Yeah, I mean, that was an unbelievable time for our team. I think going into our first round game against Duke, we had to win the game in order to have any hope of making the NCAA tournament, which hadn't been the case for me at all. That was my first time kind of going through that as a player at Notre Dame. So that like must win situation in a game where we had lost to the opponent before. It was really exciting. I think there were a lot of nerves going into it, but I mean, we just kind of shot out of a cannon and didn't look back against Duke and did a similar thing against UNC, although we came up a little bit short. So I think just going into the season, trying to treat every game like those ACC games in the tournament is going to be really important for us.
You know, I think every time I mention your name with Notre Dame, I have to also mention Casey Choma, because the two of you were part of that US U19 team, part of the same recruiting class coming in. You guys have obviously played with each other now for a couple of years. What's that relationship like amongst two leaders on this squad that have kind of come up through the ranks together?
Yeah, so I mean, we've kind of known each other since I think like sixth grade. We played in some camps together, and like the Brine All-America. I played on Team Long Island with her, so we've known each other for a long time. And I too feel like we're always attached at the hip. And then with sixes this past summer, so it's awesome that we've kind of experienced the same things together, and always pushing each other to get better is a huge thing for us, and that's really nice, I think, for both of us.
You mentioned sixes. What did that experience teach you, both like the version of it and the experience representing Team USA at the World Games?
Yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. I love sixes. It's so much fun. Actually, after the World Games, I kind of was like, oh, I have to go back to the real game. But it's super exciting. It's so fast. It was really nice for me because I used to play midi in high school. So it was kind of cool to get back to my roots as a midfielder. But it was unbelievable to represent the United States too. Just an amazing opportunity, and kind of paving the way for all the younger girls that, you know, sixes is kind of the future of the game. So being able to kind of draft like the first view of sixes was really cool. I mean, nobody had ever played it before, so no one really knew the strategy or anything. So it was cool to build it from the ground up for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is new, and especially you mentioned it, like the strategy involved, because we never really seen it played where there were real things on the line. Like, you guys are competing for a gold medal this summer. What did you learn, like, about the game and some of the strategies that you take away?
Yeah, I mean, we toyed with not having somebody behind X. We had different subbing patterns. Subbing is super important on the fly. We figured that out. Having like the right man up team, having the right man down team. Yeah, but the power plays were super fun. I got to be on the offensive one, so got to toy around with some of, you know, my competitors in college. Got to work together with them, so it was really fun, and definitely fun to get back to my midfielder position.
Yeah, and I have to think it also just in terms of stick work, because you're dealing with, like, there's obviously space, but it's a tighter field. You got to be a little bit faster with some of your moves just because the speed of the game and the shot clock. I have to think it helps, right? Like, does it make you better?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, think of like a league that you're playing in the summer or the winter, and you're on a short field. It's a lot harder to make your way around the field, and like you kind of have to tighten up your stick work and your dodging and be more precise. So I think that definitely helped.
So a little bit more about your backstory. You played at Notre Dame Academy in high school, and then you played, like, was there a question you were going to play at Notre Dame in college after you played at Notre Dame Academy in high school?
Yeah, they actually have no affiliation, which is kind of surprising. But I mean, I still wear some of my Notre Dame Academy gear around Notre Dame, and it kind of passes off as the same. So that's definitely a plus. But they're not connected, which is crazy.
Yeah,
definitely a little confusing for everyone, but
but same colors, same logo, like similar stuff.
Not the same logo,
Okay.
but same colors. So yeah.
Now, it just works out well. Your wardrobe just can carry over pretty well. Looking back so far, and obviously you've got another year here and a chance to use another year of eligibility after this, but like so far in your college career, do you have a favorite moment so far at Notre Dame?
I would say it's probably tied between two games. I would say my freshman year, it was our second game ever. And we played against Northwestern in their field house. And it was fully packed. Second game of college. And we had like an absolute nail biter at the end of the game. And we ended up out on top. And it was kind of my first like big win of college. And I just kind of knew that we had something special. And, unfortunately our season got cut short, but that team was definitely something special. And I think that was kind of our first glimpse at it before we went undefeated for our 7-game stint. And then I think my second favorite was probably the Duke ACC game last year. I think everything just kind of like came together. Everything that we had been working on finally just gelled. And it was a real team win. So definitely those two.
And I got to ask you, as an offensive player, do you have, and this doesn't even have to be in college, do you have a favorite goal that you've ever scored?
That's a good question. Let's see. I think, honestly, last year against Duke, I think this is just because of the commentary during it when I watched it back, but there was a goal. It was one of my goals during the Duke ACC game, and I kind of like snuck behind my defender on the restraining line, and MK Doherty got the draw, and she like threw it over everyone's head, and they kind of were confused, like they didn't realize that I was behind them, and I ran in and scored, and the announcer said like Notre Dame pouring it on. So whenever I watch that, I kind of get the chills. And just kind of want to replicate that moment. So I think a lot of it had to do with the announcing and our momentum at the time, but that might be my favorite.
All right, yeah, it comes in a big game too. That all works. I'll leave you here with this because we obviously have a common friend in Davey Emla, who you've been training with down there in the South Shore of Massachusetts for a while. What kind of trash talk is there around the Notre Dame, North Carolina games? Because he obviously is a Tar Heel through and through, and you got Notre Dame. What's that like?
I mean, I think he always was pushing me in high school to maybe like make a switch, just because he's such a big Tar Heel fan. But I think whenever we've played UNC, especially in South Bend, it's always been like a tight game, like 1-goal game, usually bad weather. So it's very gritty. And I think it's just two teams that match up really well against each other and kind of bring the best out of each other. So those games are always a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I mean, every ACC game's fun, but those have been special ones. But hey, I got to ask, you're from the South Shore of Massachusetts, like you live right by the beach. How do you deal with being in the middle of the country for half the year? Honestly, it's kind of tough. I really miss the ocean when I'm out in Indiana. Whenever I come home, I just keep driving by it multiple times on my way home from my workouts in the mornings, to be honest. I definitely miss seeing the ocean on my drives and the beach, but I take what I can get in the winter. Yeah, no, honestly, it's been one of my hesitations. If I ever would move to the Midwest, it's like, I don't know if I want to be that far away from a coast. Well, enjoy it here for the last week or so you have before you go back to Notre Dame. Good luck as you get ready here for your senior season with the Fighting Irish. Can't wait to see you guys back on the field. Thanks for the time, Madison. Thank you. We've got Hampton coach Chaz Woodson joining us now as we continue to get ready for this 2023 spring season. Chaz, we're excited to have you part of the CAA. Have a chance to see you guys a couple of times here on Lacrosse TV this year.
For you, new conference now, second year being part of a conference. What's that adjustment been like for you?
Yeah, I think first of all, thanks for having me on here. For us, it's not a major adjustment because we know where we stand in terms of the big picture landscape, right? Like we came in last year at the bottom of the pack, and we're starting this year at the bottom of the pack. So everything is about the challenge and about getting better and just constantly trying to improve. So we're looking forward to the CAA schedule. We know it's a grind. We know every team is going to be good. But I think last year playing in the SoCon and playing against those Richmonds and High Point and Jacksonville and, again, nothing against Mercer and VMI, and we're going to play VMI again this year. But those top three teams, I think that's what it's going to be week in and week out for us. So that was a good test last year and good preparation. Our guys were young. We're still kind of young, but at least they have a year under their belt of understanding what that level of play looks like and feels like. So it'll be tough, but we're looking forward to it.
You mentioned another year under the team's belt. This is kind of really your second full season after not having competed in 2021. What did you take away from the first full run with this group and at this program?
Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't trying to improve. And I think I've been having a number of conversations, not just last year, but through the summer and through the fall with other coaches and trying to make sure that I'm in the best, not just headspace, but in the best position to kind of help move the team forward. Having JT on staff and Kevin, I'm glad I got those guys back this year. Last year, we ended up getting JT 2 days before our first scrimmage. So we didn't have him the entirety of the fall last year. We didn't really have him much of the preseason. So this year has been a little bit different in that regard because he's been able to come in. He now has an understanding of what it looks like. Obviously he's a phenomenal player, but as a coach, having gone through that last year, and having the knowledge base and more of a true expectation of what it looks like, both from a competition standpoint, but also from a preparation standpoint. And so that's helped us tremendously this fall. And, I think it just puts us in a great place. I feel better about where I am, but also more importantly, like I said, I feel like as a staff, we're in a better place, and as a team and a program, we're in a better place.
You mentioned JT Giles-Harris, and that's a huge boost for any coaching staff, having a guy that continues to compete at the highest level and obviously had a terrific career at Duke. What kind of impact did you see when you brought him into the program amongst the team, knowing like, hey, this guy is a dude who's now we're watching him do it all summer long, and we probably just watched him growing up, and now he's on our staff.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few different levels to it. One is the recruiting impact. And now guys can look at our program and say, one, we've hired somebody that kind of shows how serious we are about building this program, but two, that he's committed to being a part of this, right? Like he could probably be anywhere in the country coaching, but he made a choice that he wanted to be here. And then obviously guys that are going to play for him, especially on the defensive side of the ball, are going to get developed by one of the best to ever do it. But for our guys, it could have been really tricky because he's right around their age.
Yeah.
Especially our older guys. In fact, a couple of them were his age. But they all immediately had that level of respect for who he is as a player and what he had accomplished. And our guys were hungry to learn. So they were able to navigate that space pretty quickly and pretty effectively, I think. And this year it's even better, right? Because they now have an understanding of how he coaches, what he expects of them. It's really been a phenomenal opportunity to, not just for the guys, but for me too, to work alongside him. So I can't say enough about him. And then of course I don't want to short, Kevin Mundy either, because he's been a great addition to our staff. He's a graduate of the program. He understands the program. He understands the school very well. And he understands the guys, the older guys he played with, but he also knows what it's like to navigate Hampton University as a student and as a student athlete. And that's been very helpful for the guys as well, to be able to go to him. And then he's great with working with our goalies as well.
Yeah, I have to think that for you as a head coach, that's such a good balance in your staff. You've got a guy who obviously knows this program inside and out, and then you got another guy who knows the top level. It's like such a good balance.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm hoping, I don't want to, jump too far ahead, but I'm hoping that we're going to be able to add another one next year. Don't know that that's certain yet, but I hope so. And then, if we can do that, we'll really be cooking.
Speaking of JT, you take any runs at him, like maybe after practice, before it all?
No, I know my limits. I know I'm there's part of me that would love to get out there with him, and not really even just to boost my own ego or test him, but really just to get out there again. I think it would be really cool to be able to go out there and take a couple runs with a guy that's that good. But the guys are always trying to get me to go out there. Last time I put on a helmet and went out there, I took a shot to the ribs. So I'm done. And in fact, it seems like every time I go out there with the guys to try to do something, whether it's just running or I end up on the wrong side of the equation. So, I don't need to end up on the wrong side against JT.
Yeah, no, that's fair. We don't need a hobbled Chaz Woodson on the sidelines all year long.
No.
You're getting old, man. This is tough.
You have no idea, man. You have no idea.
All right. Some of the things that I've seen you post on Instagram with this program, I thought were really cool. And one of the things that stood out to me was December, you guys had some U.S. Marines come and help train. Walk me through what that was like.
Yeah, so we've actually got a really phenomenal ROTC program at Hampton University, both Army and Navy. And one of the gentlemen, Captain Becker, actually has a son who plays lacrosse in the area. And, he came out and he wanted to work with some of the athletic programs, just because it gives him an opportunity to, really see how other people navigate dealing with 17, 18, 19-year-olds and so forth. And for us, it was just a phenomenal opportunity. It was something I wanted to do already, but hadn't really thought about going through the ROTC program for it. So when he came to us, we said, absolutely, anything you want to do, we're behind it. And it's developing into a really cool kind of partnership and working relationship. So we were able to get those guys out in December, right after Thanksgiving, to kind of close out the fall. In fact, even before that, we had them working with our seniors, just from a leadership perspective, and just helping our guys develop into young men who can lead their peers the right way. But yeah, we had a great time with them right after Thanksgiving, early December, out on the field for about an hour and a half, and the guys get to see what it's like to go through that program a little bit.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, and such a great experience, and a unique one too for the kids and everybody involved. That's awesome. So you enter here your second full year as a head coach. I wonder, because obviously it's tough. You're building this program. You mentioned it's at the bottom. Wins and losses sometimes can't be the ultimate judge of if you're going in the right direction. How do you continue to gauge success within this program?
Well, I think we've taken steps forward by every measurable criteria, from our actual roster numbers to our budget to our scholarships to adding staff to joining conference and moving into the CAA. There are a lot of ways to look at this. I think even last year, when we look at on the field, the number of mistakes we made at the beginning versus the end, our clearing percentage got better at the end, versus where we were at the beginning. There's a lot of things that we can look at and say, okay, we're improving, and we made great strides last year. the elephant in the room, and I'm not going to shy away from it, is that we got to put more points on the board. That's just a reality of it. We actually got significantly better defensively last year. And I think, again, it's one of those things that didn't show because we didn't clear the ball well enough, right? Or we weren't scoring goals. So now our defense was playing entirely too much. This year, I think that's better. We have better sticks all across the board from one end all the way to the other. So I'm hoping those type of things will translate. It's not easy to win games, regardless of the program, regardless of the conference. So we're well aware of that, and we obviously want to win games. We want to score points, all that good stuff. But we also know Rome wasn't built in a day, and this isn't all going to happen overnight. I think our schedule this year is set up for us to start to understand what success is. We've got some lower tier teams that we're playing that we feel pretty confident that we'll not only win the game, but we'll have a chance to execute so that we know what it feels like to execute things the right way. So as we move into the conference, it's not brand new. It's just a matter of now trying to execute consistently and execute at the highest level to give ourselves a fighting chance.
One of the things that's been in the news here a little bit is the one of some people there at Morgan State, another HBCU, to try to add Division I men's lacrosse. I wonder, for you now at Hampton, knowing the tradition that you're trying to create there at an HBCU and building this program, I wonder what you see when you see another HBCU wanting to bring lacrosse back. Obviously, that one with some significant tradition.
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to Sean Church and that program over at Virginia State. It's a Division II program, and they're adding women's as well. I think from what I hear, they're in a really good place. I think the school is supportive of it. So I'm so happy to hear that's happening. I would love for more Division I programs to pick it up, or more HBCUs in general, because I think there's so many young Black players playing now that would love to have both experiences, right? The experience of playing lacrosse at the collegiate level, whether it's Division I, II, or III, whatever, it doesn't matter. But being able to play, but then also being able to have that HBCU experience, which for some people is truly the goal, right? Like that is something that if they can do it, they want to do it. But I think there's something really special and unique about the opportunity to play lacrosse at an HBCU. And I think it's one of those things that for me, I would have certainly tried to do if I could have, if there was a viable program at the time when I was coming out of high school. I think the one thing that, I would be concerned about and cautious about is that it has to be done the right way. And it has to start with the resources in place. What you don't want to be doing is trying to play catch up. Or putting players out there in a situation where they're not equipped, not necessarily physically, but just equipped to have as much success as they can possibly have. If programs are ready, if schools, universities are ready to do it in the right way with the support and the structure in place, I think it's awesome. And I would love to see more of it.
You mentioned the HBCU experience. Now that you've been on campus for a couple of years, what have you learned about that experience and how unique it is?
It's different, man. It's very different. And that's what I encourage all of our recruits. Come visit, just come see what it's all about. Because some of it really can't be put into words. It really is an experience and it's a feeling. And it's a different experience than many of them, at least in the lacrosse community, just based on where lacrosse is played and the schools it is played in. It's a different experience than they've ever had. And a couple things stand out to me at Hampton. One is everybody is for you, right? I went to Brown where, I loved my experience there, but I can't say that everybody was for you. Here at Hampton, everybody wants you to succeed. And they're so genuine about that. And you can tell because so many of the people on campus are graduates of the university, right? So they bleed blue. They love it. They feel it. And like I said, they want you to succeed. The other piece of it is I don't know anybody that's graduated from Hampton University, and I knew some before, but certainly now that I'm in this position, I've met a lot more. I don't know anybody that's graduated from Hampton University that cannot talk to you about their experience and why it's so valuable and how much they love it forever. They can talk and talk and talk and talk about it, and I don't know that that's the same everywhere you go. In fact, I think there are only a handful of schools probably out there where people will do that. They may love, they love going to the games, or they love the parties, or they love their friend group, but there's not too many people that just talk about the university and why it was so valuable to them. And then the other piece of it is, one of the things I found from our guys is a lot of them have come in with different experiences, right? Some went to PWI, some were in public school, some were in predominantly Black and brown environments, whatever the case. But they've come to Hampton University and found that they fit in everywhere. And that everybody is kind of different. I think a lot of people came in and thought, hey, everybody here is going to be just like me. Or on the other end of the spectrum, everybody's going to be completely different than what I've experienced. And what they've found is at Hampton, there's so many different people from all over that bring different experiences to the table. And so it's very easy to fit in and find your niche and get this thing going, man. And I think everybody has been pretty happy with their experience and their choice so far.
It's a really special environment. It's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
All right. This is a podcast now, so we can go long. So I want to ask some MLL stuff. I want to ask some MLL stuff because you posted some highlight clips earlier this month, a couple of your favorites in terms of highlights. What did you have a favorite MLL goal from your career? I have a few for different reasons. Okay.
To be perfectly honest with you, that feed that I posted the other day behind the back, I think that was one of my favorite plays that I made throughout the course of my career. Because everything about it had to be perfect for it to work out. The other thing about that, if I remember correctly, I was cramping up that game, and so I was trying to push across the top, and really I didn't have anything. So if you watch it, I throw the pass and I kind of stopped and I just kind of threw my hands up, but that's because I couldn't go run over there and support him or anything. I was cramping head to toe. So that was a pretty cool one for me. But in terms of the goals, man, I think my favorites weren't necessarily favorites because of how they played out or what happened while I was doing it. It's because when I go back and look at it, it's like, wow, that was kind of fun. That looks cool. So there's a couple of those. I think the one against, I think it was that same post. It was Long Island. It was toward the end of the season. In my last year, 2017, both of those were from the last year. No, that actually it wasn't. It was from Ohio, 2013, and I felt like I was kind of being pushed off to the side, and I thought that was sort of going to be the end of my career. So I really liked that goal because it was truly me, and I felt like, all right, well, I can still play this game, and I can still play it the way I'm used to playing it, and it was cool to be able to show that because it wasn't my best year, and like I said, I kind of felt like I was being pushed out. So
you proved some people wrong for a couple more years then after that, and you kept going. And I don't think you were alone in cramping up completely during the summers in Florida.
Yeah, that was an interesting day. I spent the entire halftime. I was supposed to be getting an IV, and every time they put it in, it was popping the vein. So I spent the entire halftime trying to get IV, got no IV, and then spent the rest of the game still cramping up.
Oh, man. It brings up what I enjoy so much about talking about is time in Major League Lacrosse. And I think it still follows now in the PLL. What's the story about what you would go through on a week-in, week basis to play every weekend in the MLL that you tell people about, what that grind was like?
Well, you know, it all depends on how you look at it, right? When I first came out, it was just cool to be flying out every weekend and like being able to play the game at the highest level among the best players, and that was fun. I enjoyed that. Then it got to a point where it became a little more about you just kind of start to realize, all right, there's some things here that as a professional, if I'm going to keep doing this, I wish this was better. I wish that was better. Excuse me. And you can get really bogged down in that, and it can make it less enjoyable. And so it becomes at some point a matter of just keeping it in perspective. It's like, hey, look, man, it's the summertime. I get to fly out and go play lacrosse and get paid for it. 2-3 days out of every weekend, and that's pretty cool. And then, there's also a point, or at least for me, these were kind of the different phases. There became a point where it was less about, okay, there's business, this and that. It's like, I want to win. Yeah. Like, I'm looking back. I didn't win a state championship in high school. I didn't win a, Ivy title. I didn't go to the NCAA tournament. Like, a lot of these guys have had those experiences. Now I want to win. Like, I feel like this is my time to win on whatever team I'm on. So there was that phase of it. And then toward the end, it was like, hey, I just want to finish this thing on a high note, and because for me, I stepped off and did the LXM tour for a year, which was cool. I came back. I did 12 and 13 in Ohio, but I got injured both years. So I only played a half a season each one of those years, almost. I think that's accurate if I have the years correct, but it might be a little off. And then in 14, I was undecided on whether I was going to play, and I was told, hey, this is an opportunity to come play down here in Florida. We like you. We think you can add benefit. And I got turned into a D-midi, which you've never seen any highlights of me playing defensive midfield or any kind of defense. And so, I played for 2 games and I got cut, and nobody heard from me for 2 years, like the rest of that year, then 15, then 16. So that 17 year was really only about going out. Of course I wanted to win, but it was about finishing my career on a high note that a note that I was happy with. And to some degree, it was about proving that I could still play the game. So I went through a lot of different phases, throughout my career.
It's so funny. I listen to you go through that because, on obviously a different scale, but you hear NBA players or NFL players talk about, the different stages. And it's the same thing. It's like first you're competing, then certain things get in the way and you get bogged down. Then you want to win. And then you're like, I just want to do this as long as I physically can. And it doesn't matter what stage of athletics you're at, but that's kind of the realm.
Well, and not only do it as long as I can, but also go out before you can't.
Yeah.
One of the things about 2017, like I said, I finished on a note that I was happy with. And I knew what it was going to take on a day in and day out basis to compete at that level. And I knew I didn't really want to go through that throughout the year. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the energy. And so kind of getting back to your first question, it was like, it was fun, but it did eventually, it becomes a grind, right? Flying out every weekend. When you first start playing, you're good to go on Monday. By the end of it, it's like you're hopefully good to go by Thursday, and then you got to fly out on Friday. And some days you're not good on Friday. So, that being healthy part and just being able to finish the right way is important at the end.
Well, luckily for you now, you got a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids that are good to go probably Sunday after a Saturday game. So you got youth on your side now at Hampton. We appreciate the time, Chaz, as always. Good luck as you get ready for this season. We'll hopefully catch up here sometime soon.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the time, and thanks for the support for everybody out there that has supported and continues to support Hampton University and Hampton University lacrosse. We certainly appreciate it, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody out there this year.
Of course, man. Thanks so much, Chaz.
Absolutely.
So we are excited to have Hampton as part of the CAA now on Lacrosse TV. We'll have a chance to see them a couple of times throughout the 2023 season. Always fun to catch up with Chaz, who obviously doing great stuff at Hampton, now taking over that program, and was quite the player to watch on the field as well. So that gets us into games to watch this weekend. Division I lacrosse kicking off here the beginning of February. Cannot wait. I've got 3 games that I'm really intrigued about this weekend, so I'm going to run through them real quick here before we say goodbye. Number 1, how about Maryland, last year's national champs, coming off an undefeated season, one of the best maybe in the history of the game, where they lose a lot, not only talent-wise, they also lose their offensive coordinator. So their game against Richmond, 1 o'clock on Saturday, a chance to see what this new look offense under now offensive coordinator Jake Bernhardt looks like. Remember, it's now the Bernhardt brothers, Jake and Jesse, who are taking over who are now the 2 coordinators. Jesse has been there on the defensive end for a while. Jake now joins his brother as the offensive assistant coach for head coach John Tillman. And I'm just really intrigued to see what the Terps have. We're not going to know everything because it's early, and this team is obviously going to change throughout the year. I'm really intrigued against a Richmond team that's talented. They lose a bunch from a team that competed in the first round of the NCAA tournament of last year, but they've got Lance Madonna back. Dalton Young is back. Is that going to be enough on the offensive end for Richmond against the known we have for Maryland? That's the defensive end. So this may be a low-scoring game, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Spiders keep it close to kick off the year. So that's an intriguing one to watch, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Another game, 1 o'clock on Saturday, so you're going to have to split screen this one. Syracuse hosting Vermont. Cuse, not in the preseason poll, a team that I am so intrigued by because of the talent. They brought in this great recruiting class. Joey Spallina is wearing number 22. Owen Hiltz is back after missing last year due to injury. They've got a bunch of key transfers as well. The talent influx is there. Now we get to finally see it all come together. Is it as good as advertised? It's like one of those things. On paper, it looks like this could be great, but until you actually see it all come together, we don't know. So that will be why I'm so excited about seeing this team on the field for the first time, because it's our first chance to see, hey, maybe it feels like this could be something special, or this is still very much a work in progress. I'm guessing it'll probably be somewhere in the middle, because like we said with the Maryland offense, we got a bunch of new pieces. It's going to evolve throughout the year, but I'm really, really intrigued by this. I'm also intrigued. What do the offensive rotations look like? Who's pairing up with who? Midfield lines, how deep do they go? All that will be answered. Vermont, a team that is expected to compete in the America East. I don't know if they're as good as they've been here in the last couple of years. They obviously lost Thomas McCovney, who went down to Virginia as a grad transfer. So we'll keep an eye on Vermont as well. But this one, for me, is about learning what Syracuse may have this year. And finally, let's go out west. Denver hosts Utah. Final season opener for head coach Bill Tierney. That is going to be a storyline we're going to watch throughout the year. And Utah was good last year. They were 1 game away from their first ever NCAA tournament, and there's plenty of unknowns for the Pioneers. So much like Maryland, there's question marks for Denver. Utah, we know, is good. How good are they? And can they shock Denver to kick off this year? So maybe an upset alert for the Pioneers on Saturday. That's a 2 p.m. Eastern start, a noon start out at Peter Barton Stadium in Denver, Colorado. So there you go. Maryland, Richmond, Syracuse, Vermont, Denver, Utah. My 3 games that I'm most intrigued by in this opening weekend of the college lacrosse season. It's so good to have college lacrosse back. Our season here on Lacrosse TV gets underway in a couple of weeks, but we of course will be locked into all the games this coming weekend. We'll talk about them next week here on the show. But that is all the time we have for you here on Lacrosse Now. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.